Welcome to the Infinite Human Talk Show, and I am here and very excited about our guest, Dee Patterson.
Hello.
Who is a world-renowned psychic and has been here in Louisville for most of her life, except for traveling to Chicago and California, as we were talking about before. So before we start visiting with her, let's just take a moment to relax. So let's inhale deeply and exhale and relax. And once again, inhale and tense up your body all the way up from your toes to your legs, to your buttocks, to your calf, up to your stomach and to your rib cage, all the way up to your arms and your face, and relax. And feel all the muscles relaxing and letting the blood flow. And take another deep breath in and exhale out. And now I want you to see in front of you a book. And on this book is written your name. And I want you to take a nice big bite out of this book and just start eating it and eat all of the book. And when you've finished with the book, I want you to see a blue pearl in front of you. And I want you to easily penetrate this marvelous, round, smooth, blue pearl. And feel yourself going deep, deep, deep inside it. And you feel the vibration from this wonderful, deep, blue pearl. And now feel yourself moving through the layers and dimensions and coming up to the causal level, where you feel a fiery, powerful, red, purple, oranges are all passing you by, and there's an energy that is churning and churning and churning. And this is where you are surpassing your karma and moving beyond the karmic plane. This is where the engine of all your ideas and manifestations occur. And feel yourself engaged in that, and set yourself in the burning flames of that causal plane, and just let yourself burn for a little while. Feeling those orange, purple, and blue flames consuming you as you burn away your karma. And it feels very cleansing. Feeling it burn away with the deep oranges and yellows, purples, blues. And now feel yourself moving up, up, up into a stream of colors, ribbons and ribbons of colors in the mental plane. And let yourself grab onto one of those strands of colors and just feel yourself following it, learning from it, feeling the vibration of the mental plane. And when you're ready, take a deep breath, exhale, and open your eyes, and welcome back. Welcome back to the physical. So, I have a lot of questions to ask you. Why don't you start by just telling me about your upbringing and when you first began to notice your awarenesses and the things that happened to you?
Well, actually, I was raised as a Catholic, so my upbringing was very much steeped in Catholicism. But I did not know that I had any psychic ability until I was 36.
Oh, okay.
Unlike most people who always knew that they were psychic, I didn't. Now, I had had a few what I would call psychic experiences along the way, but they were mostly when I was under a lot of emotional distress. And now looking back, I can see because that was the only time where I'd let all my guards down. And so once I joined a meditation group, that's when I actually opened up. Because I think probably until that point, I'd never truly relaxed.
Sure. And well, could you share with us what some of those experiences might have been that
You mean
happened?
the ones that happened before?
Yeah, when you were under distress or whatever. That.
The first one that happened was I was married in 1971, and my husband was killed a month later in a car accident.
Oh my God.
So of course there was extreme emotional distress, and I had what I call a vision from Jesus, who came to me, and what he said to me was, my life was not about sacrifice, it was about love. And I just felt that energy, because at that stage of my life, I would have to say I was probably a little more into the atheist mode, you know, having thrown aside all of the Catholicism and the restrictions that went with it. And, you know, I didn't know what I believed.
Sure.
But after that experience, then from that point on, I knew that there was something much greater than what I had experienced up to that point. And of course, I was very young.
Yeah, that's interesting because my husband was raised Catholic also, because he was Latino, you know, from Cuba, and he had just tried so hard to put all his faith and energy into the Catholicism, and by the time I met him, he was just, you know, like, there is no God, because it hadn't worked for him. And then he saw Shirley MacLaine's Out on a Limb, and all those experiences she had, like out-of-body experiences and clanging and things like that, he had, and he started reading also a lot more metaphysical literature, and he had so many of these experiences, so it opened a whole new arena.
Well, I was interested in all this when I was in my teens, but I read a lot because I've always been a reader. That was the way I escaped from a lot of the problems in my childhood. But I was very interested in all of it, but I just never thought that, it just didn't even occur to me that I would have any ability. But when I joined this meditation group, and at that time I was a sales representative with the Digital Equipment Corporation selling computer systems. And my major account at that time was the University of Louisville, so it was extremely stressful. And when I found this group was forming and they were going to explore, all things metaphysical, psychic, spiritual, I rushed to join. And almost immediately, I just opened up.
Which group was that?
They don't exist anymore. It was a very small group of people.
And so what, how did that lead to you making this your profession?
Well, I actually I'd had cards since I was, I think I found them after my husband had died. It was like the following year, so maybe about 72. I had a book that I'd gotten from the book club on how to read the cards, but it was obvious that the book didn't mean anything if you didn't have the cards. And then
were these tarot cards?
Tarot cards, the Rider-Waite deck.
Yeah.
And I happened at this little bookstore to find a deck, and of course, as soon as I saw them, I thought, oh, that goes with that book, so I bought them. And so I did play with them. And there were times where I would do readings for people. One time when I was branch credit manager for Xerox Corporation here, I had 5 employees collecting money for me. And when I had talked about it, they said, oh, bring them in and read them for us. So I brought them in, brought my book, and I'd read it, and I'd read what the book said, and then I'd tell them things. And I looked at this one girl working for me, and I said, oh, it looks like you're going to move. And she looked at me in shock. And she said, yes, my husband's gotten another job, and we're transferring to Miami. I was going to tell you next week. But still, you know, I thought it was the book.
Uh-huh.
I had no idea that anything was coming from me.
Now, do you think also a lot of people have said that when they're working with whatever they work with, whether it be cards or crystals or, you know, just, you know, nothing, just, you know, listening, are they actually listening to either the higher self of the person or the guides, the soul friends of that person that are trying to communicate to them, and that person hasn't maybe been able to hear it clearly? I'm just...
All those things are potentials. I mean, we have our own spirit guides, so I'm sure there are people that work with me, but, you know, they know what's going on for you, and so, you know, they guide us into what we're saying. The difficulty comes is in our interpretation.
Okay.
Because sometimes when people feel like they weren't told accurate information, it may be that the reader themselves is filtering too much, or the symbology doesn't, it may mean something to me and something entirely different to you.
Yeah.
So sometimes what I do is I just go, does a red hat mean anything to you? I'm being shown a red hat. And then they might say, oh yes, my mother was a member of the Red Hat Society and it was a really big thing for her. But, you know, red hat wouldn't mean much to me.
Yeah, I felt that sometimes with psychics that they might have the ability to see some things, but their ego, you know, kind of muddies the water sometimes, and then they'll interpret it, and then they'll give, you know, and interpret it with too much of themselves in it.
And their own biases.
Yeah, their own biases, yeah. So
I really think a lot of the reason that I've been so successful is that when I do a reading, I try not to judge at all.
Yeah.
And I was single for a lot of years before I remarried, and I figure that I've made nearly every mistake you can make. And so I just, you know, I don't need to judge anybody else. I didn't want anybody judging me.
Yeah.
So I just try to give them the information the way I'm seeing it. I try to be kind and aware that, you know, this might be traumatic for them. And then sometimes I can be pretty tough.
Okay.
If I feel like they need to hear, like, why are you trying to get this man back when you've already said he's this, and this?
Yeah. So it seems like you have these intuitive psychic abilities, but you also have kind of counseling skills.
Yes.
And you combine the two to guide the person through, you know, whatever they're facing in their lives, which may change. Got a bug on your face here. Sorry. Okay, and let's see. Let me just look at some of the questions I was going to ask you. Yeah, would you tell me a little bit about, well, I know you did the talk show with Marilyn,
Right, Marilyn Getty.
Marilyn Getty, a long time ago,
Uh-huh.
but could you just tell me a little bit about what that was like, you know, and what you did, what you all discussed and things
Well,
like that?
we called it The Future is in Your Hands, and we had guests, much like what you're doing, and we would just ask them questions about how they went about their work, and Marilyn and I have always had a real good ease with each other, so we've, you know, we kind of bounce off each other, just maybe because we're both psychic, we intuitively can pick up where the other one leaves off. And so we had interesting people on, but because it was a cable show, once they moved the cable channel from 10, where a lot of people could flip channels and see it, even by accident, and then they might tune in. They put it at the very end, which was like 98, and then at that stage, nobody was watching it, and so we finally just decided it was time to stop.
I think we have a transmigrating soul that is like flying all around here. Go on. maybe. Okay, but you were probably a pioneer of that kind of show in those days. That was like one of the first ones to come out with.
There was another group. Barbara Blocker and Wita Ream also had a spiritual show. In fact, we were on their show, and that inspired us to do our own.
Oh, how
but you know, when you're wondering if there's two people watching you and you give a whole day to it, we just decided it was time to stop.
Yeah. Well, it's a nice thing that you started, though. Nice energy, you know, got that going. Now, tell us about your newspaper that is still going.
This is Odyssey, and it's available locally. You can pick it up always at the first of the even months at Rainbow Blossom. We always put a good supply at all of the rainbows. But it's a 24-page publication. I have a number of spiritual teachers and healers that write articles, and they're always very interesting, and a lot of psychics and healers advertise in the publication. And so if you're interested in metaphysical things, it's a very nice publication.
Or if you're a spiritual person that's working in the field, you can advertise too.
But because I keep the ad rates low, I don't take any money out of it. I've never taken money from Odyssey. All the money that comes in through donations or subscriptions all goes to the production of it. So I've never taken any money, which is the only reason why. This has been published since October 1990. It's the only reason that everything else has come and gone. Mine has stayed because I've always felt it was my contribution to the spiritual community and that I didn't have to make money from it.
Well, that's great. That's a wonderful thing to do. So let's see, what else did I want to ask you? I'm very interested in the work you do with with the grief. Because you work kind of, I mean, I know there's grief therapists that just work with the feelings, but you actually can go to, you know, like the other side sometimes. And, you know, a lot of times I think grief comes from people just not knowing what happened to the person that they cared about, and, you know.
Well, I actually do two different things where grief is concerned. As a medium, I can help people access their loved ones that have passed over. And most of the time, all people want to know is, are they okay? You know, are they in the light? Are they, you know, are they loved? Were they okay when they transitioned? And I can get information. I don't always get their name. For me, I connect better if someone gives me the name. And interestingly enough, sometimes the strangest names are the ones that actually come through. But more common names I don't always connect to. I had a woman not too long ago that came, and I actually wrote an article about it, because she was very much steeped in Christianity, but she'd had a lot of people pass. And so she came and she said, I want to know about, you know, some of my loved ones that have gone through. And her grandmother came through first, and I got her grandmother perfectly. I said, I see a thin woman, she's smoking. I said, and I, you know, just went through all the personality things. She said, oh my God, that is my grandmother. And then I got her father who had passed. And then I got an uncle, and I got his name. I think it was Leo. And she said, oh, I don't even like him. Why is he coming through? And I said, well, he just wants to apologize for not having been a better person. And so I'm like, almost finished with her session, and she said, but you never got the person I came here to know about. And I was like, well, who is that? You know, I thought, I've gone through all these people. Who is this? And it turned out that she had a very good friend who had killed herself.
Oh my
And
gosh.
the friend was living with her at the time and had killed herself in their basement.
Oh my God.
So, of course, she had a lot of guilt and all of that. So, you know, I gave her messages, which was, the friend was almost shouting at me to tell her it's not your fault.
Oh, good. Yeah.
And I had to keep telling her that. So when I got through with that, and she said, but I don't understand. I only know about heaven and hell, so where are they? You know, so I said, well, it's not heaven and hell the way we think. or what we've been taught through religion. I said, it's not like that at all. I said, there are levels, but when people transition, I said, they're met by people who love them. And I said, people who have had a really bad life, who've done really horrible things, I said, they go to be rehabilitated. I said, but they don't go to hell to burn forever, but there is a process that they have to go through to be healed. And I said, but most people are met by their loved ones who have already passed over, and sometimes by their favorite pets will show up. And I said, so that they're not alone.
Yeah. Do you, I've always been told, in fact, my husband used to say before he passed on, he said, you know, you really need to start, because he could do it, you really need to start waking up in your dreams more so we can spend some time together. So, you know, I know I'm still working on that lucid dreaming, you know.
And that's very difficult.
Yeah.
Because when I practiced that years ago, I would know I was lucid dreaming, and then I'd go, I'm just lucid dreaming, I need to sleep.
You gotta know what to do with it, where to go, how to take best advantage of it, you know.
But when you tune, you know, because you're obviously a regular meditator, if you tune in enough, you can pull him in. I've certainly talked to my mother many times that has passed over. Occasionally my father has shown up. My brother, who passed in 2006, he shows up a lot. So you can still communicate with them, but it's not the same as if me picking up the phone and calling him. Now, the other grief work I do, which is I call anger grief work, I've actually been trained in. It's called primary emotional energy recovery, and it's more of a traditional psychological method of treating people who have grief and anger issues, and usually they're combined. It's usually not just one thing.
Sure.
But when I trained in that, someone asked the instructor, his name was John Lee, how do you know where to take people? Because he could just walk in a room, and I mean, he could start with you, and before you know it, you'd be there crying or screaming or whatever. And he said, well, it's an intuitive process. So I went for my own healing. I went for my own psychological healing to these workshops, and then when he said that, I thought, well, this is part of the reason I'm here, is to be able to help other people. And most therapists and psychologists will not do this work. You have to get to that level with people where you can let them deal with their grief and let them deal with their anger and help them to get that out of their body.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I asked you before, and you said you might be open to it, but I should be open to what would come out. But I've had a lot of people pass recently, and I certainly would love to, if you get something, to try something out.
Your father, David?
Yeah, yeah.
He's very happy that you're here with your mother. He worried a lot about your mom.
Yeah.
And he still does. Has she had some problems with her eyes? Or something about not staying steady when she moves around?
Yeah, she's very out of balance. She can hardly walk.
Have you had her eyes tested? Has she had her eyes looked at?
She's just gone to the eye doctor, and she has cataracts, and so she's going to get scheduled to get them removed.
I think you'll find once that happens that the balance is back more. It's like her sense of perception is off.
Oh,
and that was what he was showing me, that that needed to be addressed.
Oh, that's good to hear. Oh, thank you. We've been trying to everything to fix her, and her memory's very bad too. So.
Well, because your mother is just at that age and place where she doesn't want to remember, so she has to. I think once she gets her eyesight back, it'll change a lot about her attitude, because it feels like most of the time she's been interested in things, and now that'll bring that back. That you're aging, and that's difficult. And then when you lose your life partner, regardless of the relationship.
Yeah, she has a hard time sometimes believing that he still is there,
But I feel like he is still there. He
Yeah.
is very much in the house.
He's still very much in the house?
Yeah, he comes back.
Yeah.
Because he's still worried about her.
Yeah.
So he's very appreciative that you came home. He just wants you to know that he loves you very much. Okay. I don't know, in a way, or did he always consider you strange in some way?
I
He
think,
said you were my strange child, but he always loved that you were different and that you listened to the beat of your own drum, and he really admired that about you. Whether he ever told you that in life, he did. He's
Yeah.
very proud of you.
yeah, well, good. That's great. What about Peter? How's he doing?
He's teaching on the other side. Peter is acting as a guide for others, especially young, like older teenagers, young adults.
Wow.
He's the inspiration. Like he whispers something in their ear, like, this is, like, try this.
Oh, that's cool.
So he's still working.
Yeah, I'm sure. He was actually excited about his next assignment, and I wasn't quite as excited about it for him. I was like, don't leave me, and
Well, that's what, it's not the same as,
Yeah.
you can still be in touch with them, but it isn't the same as picking up the phone and calling.
or holding them,
holding them,
falling
or just-
asleep with them. Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's good. That's very
difficult.
healing. Thank you. I think that's
But
so
he
important.
has important work he's doing over there.
Yeah, I knew that. So, well, that helps a lot.
So some of the books that you had, did you two write them together?
Yeah, we wrote The Pathway Home together, which is about physical, mental, emotional, spiritual healing and medicine, and the way it was written back in 1995, and it was kind of predicting the mess that medicine was going to be in by now. And we also wrote a book called Mer World together, and it was about an ancient culture of Mer people, and a kind of a love affair between a submarine captain and a mermaid. So,
Well,
yeah.
he seems to be telling me that there's another book that you're meant to write.
The Infinite Human?
I don't know. He just said there's another book. It's not one you've written. This is something yet to come.
Because we wrote a screenplay together called The Third Strand, but I didn't sell it in Hollywood, so I was thinking about making it into a book.
That might be it, because
Yeah.
he said there's another book
Okay.
for you to start
Back
work
to
on.
the writing board. I'm so sick of writing. I've written so many books and screenplays, It takes up a lot of time, but all right.
know.
Anything else? Any other orders?
No, just to know that he truly loved you
Oh, that's good. I really loved him
and you were a
too.
blessing in his life.
Yeah, it was a blessing of mine. We were very, very close. Well, that makes me feel. That's so healing, to hear that. It's
And he wants you to know that whenever your time comes, and it's not soon, but when it does, that he will be the first one there to greet you.
oh, good. I really want to hear that.
He will
Yeah,
be.
yeah.
He
Because
loved you very much. You were the light of his life.
it was so funny because when I met my spiritual teacher, I the night before I had, butterflies. I mean, not butterflies. They were like pain in my stomach. I couldn't even sleep, and I was so afraid to meet her. And I went up to her and I met her, and I said, I had found out in another very strange roundabout way that I had actually committed suicide in my past life, and it was because Peter had died, and I just didn't want to live without him. So I went up to her and I said, I killed myself in my past life. What should I do, to get over all the karma? And she looked at me and she said, live. And I was like, oh, that's not, I mean, that was 20 or 30 years ago. I thought, oh, what does that mean? Then when he died, that was the hardest thing for me to do, is to keep on living. I mean, really living after he passed. So,
Which is good that you did, because there again, that was the karmic lesson. That was what was happening. You were repeating that, so
Yeah.
your soul could this time say, yes, I'm grieving deeply. I feel this loss in a way that you cannot imagine. But I must go on, because whatever I came here to do, I still must do.
yeah.
Because I've done past life regressions for years,
Mm-hmm.
and the more of the work I do, the more I realize that if you don't get it right, if you take the easy way out, you come back to do the same lesson again,
The patterns, yeah.
but it's harder.
yeah.
Because I regressed a young woman, and because she was having a lot of depression, and I know her mother well, so I regressed her. And we went through several lifetimes, and it was always about love and allowing herself to love and be loved. And when we finished, she said, "Oh my God, I've done this over and over and over." And she said, "Each time it gets harder and harder." Now, I haven't been much in contact with her. I'm not sure that she still has gotten that. But
Yeah.
she's young. You know, you learn a lot as you get older.
Yeah. What do you think? My spiritual teacher's always talking about like soul friends and the diva kingdom and things like that, you know, and the relationship that we have with these, you know, spirits. What have you found working with people? I mean, do people, you know, have like a set of, are the ones that pass on, are they kind of like part of their...
Your spirit guides can come in many forms. And some people like, I can't think of her name now, Sylvia Brown, always talked about her one guide, Francine. And so people tended, from they read her work, tended to think, okay, you've got one spirit guide. But in fact, you don't. You have many. And some come just for a particular period of your life to work with you. And then when that resolves, they go away. But I've taught meditation since I got into, well, actually, I taught it almost immediately with the group that I joined. The first one, when our teacher wasn't there, I took over. So it didn't take me long to really immerse in all of this. But they have many guides, and you know, they can be famous people who've passed over. People have seen Mary and Jesus, and they've seen Buddha, and you know, so they can be the icons of spirituality, the Pope. And they can be mom or dad that have passed over. It's not unusual when you really get into meditation on a regular basis, especially in a group, for your own parents or loved ones to just show up in your meditation to give you a message. It's very powerful because people will actually have tears running down their face from it. But then we have just a set of spirit guides that are just like your husband. They're there to help. You know, they've decided or signed up to help me on my journey.
Do you ever like how do you, these energies around you, these people, these guides, do you sense them? Do you see? Do you?
I see, feel, and hear information. So when I'm meditating, generally I will see them. And I will hear what they have to say. Sometimes it's just an impression, feelings. I mean, that's how I read too. It's just what comes through. Now, I do use cards as a way to focus. I'm a tarot card reader. I don't have to have cards to read people, but it makes it easier. This work can be very draining. And so I use the cards, and sometimes what they tell me I'm paying attention to, sometimes I'm not. And maybe I'm somebody that's really easy to read and very open. Things just come tumbling in.
I used to paint, I love the weight tarot, and I used to paint the cards on like t-shirts, you know, so I call it tarot wear. A long time ago. I just, they're so symbolic, you know. I love strength and the magician, like those are two of my favorite ones. So you're having a workshop coming up?
Right, this Saturday, August the 2nd, I'm teaching the tarot workshop. I've had a number of people that have asked me if I would teach it, and that one I usually don't offer unless I know there are some people that want to take it. And what I do is I just go through the cards and explain what they mean, and the real purpose of it is for them to open up to their own intuition, their own psychic ability, and to go beyond what that card says. But even someone who's not into this, if you lay a card in front of them, they can look at it and tell you something about it, because the Rider-Waite deck is so depictive of information. It's got a lot of symbology in it, and just easy for people to read.
Yeah, I think it really helps to have something tangible and physical to focus on, to get that intuitive. We used to just, in some of the workshops we did, we would pass our pens around. We'd exchange pens, and we just look at this pen, and this person is very knowledgeable and responsible and organized, just by looking at the pen,
Well, because that's psychometry, where you're picking up the energy from the person. And there are readers who do that. I mean, there's all different forms, like it's always amazed me that people can look into tea leaves and figure out something. But the problem, or at least my experience, and that's been the same for my friend Marilyn, is that, after a while, there's nothing else coming from holding something, or with the cards you can always lay out more cards,
yes.
And then more information comes through.
One thing that I've discovered I was able to do is, because I've traveled a lot in my lifetime, and like when I go to ancient ruins, like the Parthenon in Greece or the Forum, I could just touch the stones, and it was like I could, see everything that had happened there. And my life's also how I interacted with people, and it's just the strangest thing to get like an ancient stone, and hold it, and it's just like all that the information is there.
Well, because the energy is still contained, the record is still there. But it's, most people wouldn't have the ability to do that.
Well, I also wanted to ask you, you said you'd talk a little bit about crystals. Can you, because everyone's always curious about crystals, and, I wear a crystal, and they're like, wanting to touch it and stuff.
Well,
I'm like, don't touch my crystal.
the clear quartz, there's a reason for that. The clear quartz crystals are conductors of energy. That's why they're used in all electronics, and they're used in TVs and all that, radio transmitters, because they conduct energy. And so it's an energy stone. So in itself, it's not necessarily powerful, but you project your own thoughts and energy through it, and then
you can charge
it, and it manifests. But all stones, all natural gemstones, have an energy that resonates to something within the body. And so there are people here who that's all they do. They do crystal healings or stone healings, and I've had one done, so it can be very powerful to work with the energy of stones, and especially if you line them up to the chakra system. If someone's having a problem with their stomach and they want to use any of the gold tone of stones, and maybe combine that with or green, which is healing.
Now you know Peter, so when we first met, he was like a doctor and Mr. Scientist, Republican, anti-anything, and I was like herbs and yoga and meditation and stones. And so we went to the Canary Islands, and I was really into stonework, so I laid the stones on him according to his chakras, and kind of ran the crystal, and then I left him there because he kind of fell asleep, and went on with my thing. And then he wakes up, and he comes running in, and he goes, "Oh my God, I felt this energy, and it went up my body, and I thought it was going to break my spine, and it was like so amazing." And I'm like, "Darn it, you had the raising of the Kundalini, and I've been wanting to have that for so long." And
you may not have actually needed it, though. You might have already been in that state, and you were trying to achieve something.
I got it later on, but that has always been a big part of my spiritual process, the path of Kundalini. But I think he needed that because, he was so attached to the physical body, he couldn't believe that there was actually a spiritual energy that could cause that much nuclear reaction inside your physical body.
So that was his opening.
That was the
meditation group was my awakening.
Yeah,
exactly. It woke me up to, this is what you came here to do. And after I joined that group, I came across at an astrological conference. 3 years later, I met a woman named Jean Avery, who was a well-known astrologer and had written a number of books. And it turned out that I sat in one of her classes, and she said, "I'm not going to do astrology. I'm doing something else. So if you're looking for that, you might want to go somewhere else." And I thought, "I'm here. I'm going to stay," because I'd wanted to meet her. And she did a regression. And out of that, she and I connected, and we traded, and I did some readings for her, and she did a past life regression for me. And that was when I saw exactly what my life purpose was. It was like another awakening. It was like, okay, now I know what I'm meant to do.
Wow. Wonderful. And so it's time for you all to awaken. That's what this show's about. I think, I believe that everyone's like a little piece of this puzzle, and as they awaken, we're midwifing in this whole new earth, and we're, entered the age of Aquarius already. So it's an amazing time on the history of this planet and also the whole universe. And next week we're going to have some people. I think Willie Skywalker, Windwalker Gibson. Willie Windwalker Gibson. He's going to be on, and we're going to have someone else. And they're going to be talking a little bit about UFOs, and because there's so many sightings of them, and what that has to do with this whole change that's happening. But before I get off purpose, can you talk to me a little bit more about your medical intuitive counseling?
Well, what I do with someone is I just try to tune into the body. Sometimes I pick up a signature of something that they've already had. Like I might ask someone, are you having trouble down in the, female organs now? I'm picking up something there, and they'll go, well, I had a hysterectomy 6 months ago. Mm-hmm. And so some things I'm picking up what's the signature of what already has happened. And then sometimes I might look at a person and just go, you've got thyroid problems. Mm-hmm. And your doctor's probably telling you that that's okay, but I'm telling you it's not. You have a low mm-hmm. thyroid, and if you look up the symptoms, you'll find that they meet exactly what you have going on. Mm-hmm. And it's more like that. Like I might say to somebody, you've got a problem with your lower spine, and the reason that you have that is that you want to move forward and you're afraid to move forward, and that's the energy of pushing and back is what's keeping you from healing in that area. Sometimes I get the symbolic, the emotional part of what the dis-ease is in the body.
Yeah. I think people don't know how important that is. Being married to a physician, as Peter began his spiritual journey, he actually spent like an hour or so talking to patients and finding out the reason behind like their pain. We write in the book, one woman came in and she just has this reoccurring pain in her uterus, and it turned out her baby had died, before. And it's those thought forms that trickle down, and then they get into the body, and cause dis-ease, as you said. And if you can actually address the thought form before, you can really, have a holistic healing that will, save you a lot of pain and a lot of...
Well, and if I say someone comes in and they've got fibromyalgia, and I go, well, you've got something systemic in the body that's pain, I don't know if it's arthritis or something else, and they'll go, well, I have fibromyalgia, and I'll go, okay, who verbally or physically has beaten you up in your life or is still beating you up? Mm-hmm. Because it's like your fibromyalgia is pain all over the body. It's like somebody is beating you up.
Yeah.
And sometimes, and most of the time, they will say, oh, yeah, that was my dad, or that was my mom, or my ex-husband. One woman said, my ex-husband used to beat me. I finally left him.
Yeah.
I was like, well, you got all that energy there. You want to get rid of this.
Yeah.
And I don't tell them not to take medications and things because, when you're sick, it's hard to heal yourself.
Mm-hmm, sure.
But I do tell them that if they'll work with that emotional part of it, they'll get better. Mm-hmm. And chronic fatigue is another one of those ones where it's really that somebody drains them. They drain all their energy. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They're having to put forth energy for something they don't want to do.
Yeah. I'm so glad to hear you talking this, because you really are talking my language, because I come from a family of psychotherapists, and I have a degree in mental health counseling, and then of course my awakening and my spiritual path took me this way. But I think you really have to, like we said, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, address all those natures in a healing, and people need to go back and understand the patterns that show up in this lifetime, but are also from past lifetimes that aren't resolved until they
and that's one of the ways that past life can help too. Now it won't always solve things, because it may be that the issue was in this life. I regressed a woman, and she wanted to know why she had anger issues. She said, I think this is from a past life. Mm-hmm. And so I regressed her, and we went to this life, and she's sitting at the kitchen table, as a little girl with her mother, and then her dad comes in, and it turns out he's an alcoholic, and the first thing he does is reach over and knock her off of her chair. And so I worked with her on that, because that was what was really going on. It wasn't there might have been a past life connection, but it was so present in this life that she needed the healing in this life first.
Yeah.
And then I was shocked, like, you didn't know that?
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it's easier to put it way behind you than
or
actually
think, well,
deal
it
with it.
didn't happen here, it's in another life. And
But
then,
I've always been told that everything from a past life that you need to deal with is in this life.
it repeats.
It repeats
I
until
had
you take care of
a
it.
woman who came to me that had migraine headaches, and she tried everything, and someone had suggested maybe she try past life. And in one lifetime that we went back to, she was like, her mother was like the healer, or the village that she was in, it was way back, and they were superstitious, and they frowned on her, and so by proxy, because she was the daughter of this woman, then there was something wrong with her, and so the villagers got upset about something. I've forgotten all the details, but anyway, they ended up stoning her to death, and the stones hit her in the head. And then we went to another lifetime, and she was in another tribal situation, and her father was like the tribal king or chief or whatever he was, and she had fallen in love with someone that wasn't acceptable to the father, and so the father had him killed. And in grief, she had gone to a river that had like a waterfall, and had thrown herself into the river. And when she did that, she hit her head on a rock and went in. So we did some work on releasing, and forgiving. And
no wonder she had migraines. Oh my gosh.
Yes. And I talked to her about 6 months later, and I said, have they come back? And she said no.
Oh, great. That's wonderful. That's
so,
amazing.
I mean, I don't know how long it lasted, but at least for a while it did.
Yeah. Let me stop for 1 minute, because I want to talk about my spiritual teacher is doing a nonprofit organization, and it's called www.risingstarsfundraising.org. If you can go to that website, and it's a program that she offers inner city kids that wouldn't have an opportunity. She flies them up to her ranch in Montana, and she mentors that are spiritual people like us. We volunteer our time, and we teach them creative activities that help build their own self-confidence and self-esteem. And I wanted to just a minute to show you how powerful the program is. I wanted to read you a poem that one of the participants wrote, and these are children from 9 to 17, and this is called the Rising Star Fundraising Project. Digging, just digging, with nothing but my hands, trying to find that buried treasure inside me, deep. All I need is that shovel. I dig through the never-ending hole of life with nothing but my hands. I dig through conflicts, bad choices, good relationships, bad relationships, but make no dent. Hands, beautiful hands, hands that give me the shovel, hands that vanish. Ignorant, curious, helpless, the shovel unused in my hands. I need someone, a teacher, a being, strong, wise, to direct my hands and teach me to use the shovel. Calm, solitude, deep within my own thoughts, searching, sitting, hands folded, eyes closed. She doesn't see me, but I know she knows I'm there, waiting, just for me, nobody else, my soul friend, also an expert gardener. She teaches me how to use the shovel. And once I start digging with that shovel, I will be forever digging that beautiful, by Rising Star participants. So you can see that the program is very, very effective. And if you go to that website, www.risingstarfundraising.org, there are also little gifts that a lot of the O'Hara people. My teacher's name is Sharon O'Hara, and they have donated their gifts, and the profits go to Rising Star, and they have like very interesting spiritual cards, soul cards. They have some herbal essence necklaces, and they have pendants that I'm wearing, which is a cosmic heart, which is a heart that the ancient people carved into stone, thousands of years ago, because they knew we, the modern people, would lose heart, and we'd be having problems with our heart, and they didn't want us to lose heart. So go there and look at all the wonderful things that are there, and if you buy some or if you donate, it's going to help the kids get up there and get the help they need and make a difference on this planet. So, well, okay, do you have anything else that you need to announce about what we've talked about, the workshop that's coming up?
Well, and I have another workshop in November. I teach the law of attraction to help people figure out how to attract the things into their life that they want instead of the things they don't.
Oh, that's great.
And I've been teaching that for many, many years, like the tarot class, and I've seen people just manifest amazing things. And I always say it works when you use it, and all of us sometimes forget that we need to use it.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm teaching that. And also we have a really strong astrological society here. Mm-hmm. And we've, through the years, have brought in some of the top name astrologers across the country, and we're bringing in Robert Hand in October to do a Friday night lecture and a all-day workshop. So we're really excited about that. But we meet the second Friday of every month at 7:30 at the Bonnier Library. You don't have to join to come. We always have some type of a program. And we have some really excellent astrologers right here in the Louisville area. As far as I'm concerned, we have as good of astrologers here as anywhere in the nation. Mm-hmm. They're just really good people.
Is that 7:30 in the morning?
No, 7:30 at night.
Oh, good.
No, it's evening. No.
I'm kind of not a morning person.
No, it's 7:30 at night, and
That's
we always have good programs. And for the workshops, there are charges for that. But
okay.
Anyone who studied astrology, Robert Hand wrote the book Planets in Transit, and it's like the Bible for the transiting planets around a chart. So we're really excited to have him come in.
Now, is this posted on your website or in the Odyssey, or?
It's in Odyssey,
okay.
And there's an ad in there about him coming. And
okay.
our website for the astrology group is aboutask.com.
Okay.
And I think probably if you Google astrology in Louisville, we come up. I'm not sure, but we should, because inadvertently I've been in charge of that.
Okay, great.
Those who do get to do.
Okay. And this is reminding me that my film that I filmed in Italy this spring, What is God, is going to be showing at the Unity Church on Old Harrods Creek Road the 26th, I'm thinking, of August. It's we're asking for a $5 donation. That's kind of going to go tithe to the church, and it's it's an interesting show that interviews international people. They all speak English, but they're Italian and Irish and English and American. And we ask them several questions, about their concept of God and if they've had any extraordinary experiences, and how they connect on a daily basis and remain in that energy. And then we're going to have a discussion afterwards, to see how other people. How they relate to that. And we'll also be showing it at the Rainbow Blossom, 7 o'clock on a Friday in November 7th. So, and that will also be, I think, a love donation of $5. So you'll have 2 chances to see it. And so that's what's going on now. So thank you very much for joining us, and I'll see you next week. Goodbye, and thank you Dee Patterson. And please check out her website and all the wonderful things she's doing, and pick up a copy of Odyssey at Rainbow Blossom. You've already met Summer, who owns the Rainbow Blossom, so it's a nice little community here. We're all connected.